Hello, I'm Sharon.
And I'm Wendy.
Welcome
Welcome
to
to
Brown
Brown
Space.
Space.
This is a safe space where we talk about the hard topic of racism.
And build empathy through the healing power of conversation.
Thank you for joining us.
So, what kind of reactions have you been getting from our conversations that we've been sharing on YouTube?
It's been such a range, of emotion and word responses and conversations. The one word that comes up a lot is uncomfortable from both sides of the color wheel.
Huh?
Uncomfortability in terms of maybe it's an indication of that, okay, I'm being convicted here, you know, I'm guilty of white fragility, or maybe not, I don't know, but it's uncomfortable, but worthwhile conversation,
Mm-hmm.
right? To listen to and to get me to think to see what I can do. And then I have the other side of the spectrum where it's like it's uncomfortable because as a person of color, who are these people? What is this white person going to say to me or say in a conversation that's going to mean anything or is going to move my whole trajectory forward as a person of color? What do they have to offer? You
What
know,
could this white person
have to say, right,
that and how could they understand the experience of people of color, which is
right.
the best question because that's why we need conversation, right?
It's about our word is understanding, right? So it's interesting listening to the different um, feedback of you know people that I know, um, and it's all in love
Yeah.
and I'm so glad my family and my extended family and extended family. I am grateful that God has surrounded me and connected to me people who are loving people, whether they are white, brown, black, whatever color you want to put them in terms of spectrum, but they're most of all they're human beings that know how to love. So I'm hoping that quite a few of them will end up being in the conversation and even being recorded.
Fabulous. Yes, because we, like you said, way back when we were just chatting as girlfriends before we ever hit the record button, uh, your whole sort of credo was conversation builds empathy. Empathy brings understanding and improvement little by little in our shared experience.
You can be passionate, and we talked about that, I think, in our first episode or sometime.
Hmm.
You can be very excited and be very passionate about a thing or a cause or whatever you're being involved in. However, we have to have that space where there is compassion, right? Because
Yeah.
being passionate and being excited and having a lot of fuel is one thing. You need that energy to keep going, but you also need that space of being compassionate,
Hmm.
or getting to that place of being someone of compassion, because compassion is what moves you to respond to or engage with someone else or another person with care and concern and understanding. It's not just a yeah, 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 we're doing this thing. That's what I love about what we're doing, is that it's not a we have a project and we're doing a conversation and it's on YouTube. It's we're two people who are learning to understand each other and treating each other with care.
Yeah, because we were already friends, but
Hmm.
didn't really know, and we still don't. We're discovering, we're exploring how we each experience life as we move through it, and how we experience the treatment of others, and what we do to manage that, to work through that. Because the challenges are very real, and how you as a woman of color handle sexism is on a different level than what I do
Mhm.
to handle sexism, and we both deal with it. But you got the race card thrown on top.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's a different story that I don't entirely get yet, and I may not entirely ever get it, but I hope I get closer to understanding
Yes.
where, how that plays. Um, and I would love to actually interview some men of color, just have them join us in the conversation, because I wonder if they have a different kind of sexism to deal with, because black men are so villainized culturally in this country. Is that another form of sexism that we don't even think about, maybe?
Yeah, and I think it would make for even interesting conversation if we had men from both sides of the spectrum.
Ooh,
That
yeah.
would be just men who are really self-assured in who they are as a white man or a man of European descent, and a black man, a man of African descent, a man of Asian descent, just have like that. That would be interesting to see that come through. It really would.
It really would. And I mean, I'm super curious, and here we're just sort of pontificating hypothetically, but I'm super curious about how folks of the Latin culture see themselves and how they experience racism. Also, is it truly racism, or is it a cultural bias? You know, is it important to have those distinctions? I don't know. I don't know. So
And
I
that's
want to
where
explore that.
that whole idea of colorism does come into play, because people who are Spanish or of Hispanic descent, they go through that same issue. Are you a black Spanish or a white Spanish, or so all of that,
Mhm.
is an interesting dynamic to talk about. One of the things that, and I was going to wait until we're officially recording to talk about the fact that, this that we're doing is not to call out anybody or to point finger at anybody. This is about a bringing in or a calling in of all of us to see, where we stand and what can we do as a people, as humans.
As humans,
Yeah,
beings of the human race.
absolutely. So, I know that we have to be mindful of that, that uh, people are not feeling, anyone who's watching in our audience is not feeling um, like we're calling them out and this is an accusation, or because that is not our heart, right?
Right. Yeah. No, I'm more interested in calling myself out.
Exactly. What have I not been doing, or
Yeah.
what is it that I can do? And we've even talked about that whole, well, I know I'm not I'm gonna run out there and do a protest, and I admire people who have that tenacity and bravery and courage to do that. But I was still very bothered in my soul about, oh my gosh, this horrible injustices are happening. What can I do? What can I do? I really prayed about it, cried about it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So out of that came this. It's wow, this is an opportunity for you to talk and use your voice and um, start to empower others as well as continue to empower yourself and use what it is that you got. We got voices. We definitely do.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we do. We know how to talk. We have the gift of gab.
You have the gift of can't even do it. Give us a note. Give us a note.
um, so where did we leave off in our previous video? Our last video, we were talking about the power of language, right? Of words.
Words. We talked a lot about history,
Mm.
American history. We talked about Black History Month and Women's History Month, and we each get a month, Black History, Women's History.
I love how you say that. We get a month.
So what happens for the rest of the year? I don't know. The 10 months, it's what kind of history is that? You know? What are we focusing on for 10 months? Something to think about, yes?
Very definitely. So our last video was so long that we actually stopped before the ending. And what we want to share now is the last 10 minutes where you tell this amazing story of an experience um, with a very powerful and derogatory word and how you dealt with that situation. So,
We were talking about word and word usage and how words dehumanize an individual or even a group of people. And we had some examples about that. And we have words that are really, really derogatory. In the bulk of this next part, I'm sharing an experience that I'm sure it's not unique among people of African descent, and how that very derogatory word, what led to a relationship after that. So, yeah, let's share that.
if you were raised completely and utterly as if all history were white and you're going through time and everything's white and politics are white and everything's white, suddenly, you know, how many years ago now? Was it 12 years ago? Barack Obama, the first person of color in the White House. So, like, if you haven't, as a white person, if your whole upbringing has been so white and your experience has been so white, and you're the majority, and then everyone else is other minority, by definition, by the word use, smaller, lesser, minor, not major.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's suddenly what I don't relate to how that person looks, and maybe I think I don't relate to how they speak, even though he spoke in an extremely neutral fashion, if you ask me. But that's an interesting thought. You know, how does a white person feel about that? You know, I remember thinking it's about time. Hurrah!
Of
You know,
course.
huzzah! Hallelujah! I was
Yeah.
thrilled, and I know a lot of white people were. But I know that it's also, it can be uncomfortable and scary for someone who hasn't realized, wait a minute, there are more people of color around me than I thought, than I realized.
It's taking those blinders off, right?
Hmm.
And coming out of that space of I don't see color, and we talked about that already. I
Yeah.
don't see color. So if I don't see color, I don't have to acknowledge it, and then I don't have to talk about it because,
Hmm.
it's something I don't know, I don't understand. I don't want to admit it, and that's where that whole learning piece comes in.
Because if we ignore, oh, that's the problem, Sharon, what you just said. I had a light bulb moment. When we ignore race because we don't want to see color, we it's not an equalizing force because we end up ignoring other people.
There you go. True.
Ooh, ouch.
Absolutely.
Wow.
It's just so much. So
Yeah.
much.
But like you always say, the heart of it is love, you know? Love and empathy. That's how we're gonna overcome the this there's so much. Love can do it.
Love can do it. I want to share an incident because as we were getting ready to come on, I mentioned it to you. Um, One of my daughters, adult daughters, who's a mental health therapist
Mm,
here in Florida on Apollo Beach, she has a mental health practice called Revolutionary Change
mm,
Counseling. And when she was 6 years old, and we had just moved from New York to Lee County, and she had her first encounter. And I'll never forget it. She had her first encounter with someone calling her, using words again, the N word. And she knew it wasn't a good word, and it's not something that we used in our household, and it came from a negative place. And she was very sad. She came home and she said, Mommy, so and so on the bus, he called me, and she said the word. And my blood began to boil. As a mother, you're like, oh my gosh, like, really? And so I breathed, I put my clothes on, I took her by the hand. We walked several blocks to this young man's house. And I guess it's always good to breathe and kind of let things cool down. And the walking did that for me. And by the time I got there, of course, I'm going to be me, the person that I know my God has created me to be. And that is someone always taking the high road. And so I explained to the mother as she opened the door that this particular incident happened with her son and my daughter, and she seemed like really surprised, like, "Oh my gosh, I don't even know where that came from." Could have came from the household. It could have came from she could have been telling the truth. Could
mm,
have came from television, media, school, other classmates. She
mm,
doesn't know, but she apologized.
mm.
And so, with that, just to fast forward our conversation here, my daughter and that little boy became really, really good friends. I mean, because of the approach
Oh,
and understanding and extending that olive branch,
mhm.
even though it could have gone another way.
Yeah.
Um, and so play dates, birthday parties, all that, um, for the next couple of years in elementary school. And so it became, I guess, an interracial relationship, right? Because that's what it's really all about. True, authentic relationship starts with that uncomfortable place of conversation,
Yes.
and then
That was
where we go from there. Yes,
majorly uncomfortable for you, I can imagine.
yes,
Oh. But you gave her and the family and that little boy the opportunity to rise up out of it. You gave them the benefit of the doubt, first of all, that they would want to apologize and correct the situation. Because you might have just come with guns blazing, metaphorically, of course, and yelling, and you
hmm
owe her an apology, and you could have been really angry in her face as opposed to just inside. And it would have been justified, but it wouldn't have created that bridge.
no, no, it wouldn't have. And I say all of that to say that in incidents like that, or um, situations like that, within my own family dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
And I mentioned before about the importance of learning and growing about your history and American history, period. I think it has allowed her to be able to be the successful business person that she is.
Your
You know,
daughter,
and
yeah.
one day we have to have her on because she's gone through her whole, you know, situations and issues of the surprise that people will have on their face when they realize that she is the CEO of, you know, that particular company, or that she oversees 22 um, therapists who, by the way, it started out being of more so, believe it or not, people who were non African descent,
Hmm.
but it has grown as she has grown to be a more integrated type of practice.
Wow.
Um, but there's just so much, and I don't want to go on and on about her story, but we can have her on as a female, a black female
Hmm.
in business,
Hmm.
and what that is like in her industry.
Oh, yeah. And the systemic challenges that she probably continues to face. Yeah. Yeah,
Absolutely.
that'll be a fascinating conversation. I look forward to that episode. But that story and how you and your family um, have have guided each other from a place of love, and then that's where our friendship is coming from. That's where these conversations are growing from, and this whole platform is from love. So I'm hopeful. You asked me, I think, a time or two ago if I thought, we could actually heal racism one day, and I said maybe not in our lifetimes, but I'm more and more hopeful that yes. But I believe now, the more we talk about it, that with love, like true love and patience, and giving each other the opportunity to be and do better, that we will see more and more healing of systemic racism, and especially the systems in our minds and in our hearts, that we'll wake up to it.
Absolutely. I think this is a great conversation.
Mm.
You know, be reminded that we want to lead ourselves
Hmm.
from that place of um, understanding and empathy. You've been watching Brown Space with Sharon and Wendy.
It's been so great talking and sharing here today. We look forward to your comments below, or you can email us at brownspace2020@gmail.com.
Remember, you are the light that gives light to the world.